Here's how we do a mounted arm triangle for the street. First things first, when we're talking submissions in street versus sport scenarios, we have to take into account the overall position before we even talk about the submission itself. Now, when we're talking like mounted arm triangle, obviously I'm talking about being in mount. But what you'll see a lot of times in sport is when people secure the triangle portion, a lot of times they hop off and they'll either post their knee on the hip or they completely come up off on the side and kind of drive into him a little bit. I never want to fall off to the side in a street situation to finish this choke for two big reasons. Number one, regardless of whether I'm knee on stomach, knee on belly, or off to the hip, I have no sense of vision or clue or anything. I have no idea what's going on the other half of the body. I can't see his arm, I can't see his waistband. So if I'm over here, and again, let's assume maybe there's a weapon that hasn't come into play yet. I'm over here, trying to choke him out. Maybe Mitch is able to withstand this a little bit, or maybe he's actively defending it just enough to kind of keep his conscious, but it gives him time to draw a weapon of any sort. I'm not gonna know until the situation is too late, and I'm just putting myself into a vulnerable situation. The second reason I don't wanna go here is if I'm not able to finish this choke, if I'm sitting here squeezing, nothing's happened, and somehow Mitch manages to escape, break the grip, and now we kind of turn into a scramble, the last place I want to be is scrambling on a street situation, because let's just say the guy overpowers me a little bit and now I went from a dominant position to now Mitch is on top, maybe he takes it back, maybe he gets him out, and it just risks putting me into a bad spot. So when we're talking mounted arm triangles, especially for the street, and honestly even sport lately, I've really only been looking to hit these from mount. I want to stay in mount the entire time. If I manage to get on top and secure a top mounted position on somebody in a street situation, I want to stay here. One, my hip, controlling their hip is going to prevent them from drawing anything. Now, typically if I'm mounting someone in a self-defense atmosphere, I don't want to be riding real low, because if I'm loading up on his hips, if he starts really bumping and driving, he's going to be able to elevate those hips and escape. So once I actually secure the mount, I do kind of want to elevate and kind of get a little bit more of a higher mount, and I'm going to start kind of bringing up my knees a little bit. But again, I'm still preventing him, like he's not going to be able to reach around and grab anything on the waistline, right? Now, let's talk about the actual setup for the mount, or for the mounted arm triangle itself. I want to make sure, first of all, again, I kind of just secure the head at this point. I'm not really worried about him punching me or anything from here. It's really not going to do much. For anyone that says he's just going to sit there and bite into you, it's very easy for me to get his head to kind of turn away, and I can just sit here and really pressure into his head a little bit, and he's not in a position to bite me, so just kind of take that out of the comments. But as I'm sitting here applying this pressure, once I do secure the head, what I want to do is now start looking to isolate one specific arm. Doesn't matter which one, but I'm going to start isolating one arm. Usually the cross-face arm, what I tend to do is get a good grip on the back side of the tricep just to kind of hold it in place a little bit, so that now I can kind of bring my body down a little bit and I can get my head tucked behind his tricep just to kind of hold this in place. Now this is the key detail for finishing these arm triangles. I want to make sure that I go palm down. A lot of people tend to just go palm up and they get into this arm triangle position and they right away lock it, which is fine, but the problem is that when I go palm down, my biceps naturally flex. So if I'm trying to get as deep of a compression as possible, I'm limited on how deep I'm going to be able to go when my biceps already flex. Whereas if I go palm down, my biceps relax, which means I can really compress this nice and tight, and then when I go to turn my palm up and flex, it makes it that much tighter. So just a little detail to tighten them up a little bit. But what I want to do is as I go palm down, I'm also looking to take the crook of my elbow, and I want that laying right on the side of his neck. Again, I'm going to use this pressure to kind of pressure him in a little bit and really kind of work this arm through. Again, if you have to like push his head, that's fine. Like I'm in a good position to control this. Once I've gotten it nice and deep, now I'm going to lock, secure the grip, and again, I'm going to start turning my palm up so that I can start flexing my bicep into the artery, get that compression a little bit tighter. Now what I want to do in addition to this is I'm not looking to lean forward. Instead, I want to sink everything down to his chest. So I'm going to extend my knees a little bit. I'm dropping my chest and hips into his diaphragm. Now I start squeezing and I can get the tap from there. If he starts defending this, right? Again, if he starts trying to answer the phone a little bit, if he starts trying to chop his arm down a little bit, one thing I can do from here is also start looking to kind of bring my chin over the top a little bit. This is where a lot of people will tend to scoot off to the side and bring the chin over, which again, I'm not recommending that you hop off to the side. So an alternative for this, especially if you're also dealing with a bigger guy, is if I'm sitting here squeezing, nothing's happening, he's defending it, what I actually want to do is now, again, keep this compressed, but I'm going to slide this arm through, grab the inside of my elbow. I'm actually going to look to grab behind my head. And now from here, as I start squeezing, it makes it a little bit tighter. If I start pulling my head up, what actually it does is pull this arm through a little bit more. So this gets it tight, this gets it a little bit tighter, and again, I'm still sinking my chest and hips and everything into it. Now, last little bit of information, the beauty of trying to do this type of choke from mount rather than off to the side, again, if we're talking position, if at any point, again, we already talked about how I can prevent him from grabbing any weapons, but if at any point I lose control of the situation, he starts bumping, moving those arms frantically, I just post out. I don't lose the position. From here, I can easily even just use my chest to kind of get his head to turn. If you're a law enforcement officer, you got your vest, your walkie-talkies, everything. This really allows me to kind of drive their head down and get their head to turn. And at this point, I can either just maintain this position, or I can go right back into, again, looking to lock it up, isolate, control. I also have the ability to kind of move off to the side if I want to start attacking the arms. I can easily do that. And best case, or best position point for this especially, is if something else were to happen, if someone else were to run in, I'm still in a good position where I can still see, like if I'm in this mountain, I can still see the vast majority of what's going on around me. I can easily pop back up to my feet if I need to, and then again, ultimately, I can still apply a deep pressure on this choke to get the person to go to sleep. So Cliff Notes version, putting it all together, right? We're doing mounted arm triangle, stay in mount, look to secure the head first, look to isolate one arm. Again, I want to be a little bit of a higher mount. Start initially with your knees pinched to just kind of keep them from bumping and rolling you. When I get the arm triangle set up, I'm going palm down, getting as deep as I possibly can on the neck. Once I've secured that and I get my head nice and tight next to them, again, I'm driving my head into them. I'm going to grab nice tight gable grip, tuck my elbows, turn that palm up to make it tighter, squeeze. And again, as we're doing this, we're also extending our knees out, compressing everything through. If you still can't get the finish, switch to the bicep, grab the back of the head, squeeze, and we can still get the tap in there.